All right, on the Sci-Fi Express lane, this is Jeff Carroll. Today, I'm going to talk about kind of a simple thing that is so complicated when you really start talking about it, and that is, how do you rate your movies, your books, your comic books that you read? It's something everybody does because people ask you, what did you think about it? You know, as soon as I come from the movies, as soon as I close that book after I finish reading it, as soon as I put the comic book down, if somebody sees me do those things, they're going to ask me, you know, what did you think about it? And I have gotten really good at rating my movies in ways that I really didn't do before, and I guess I'm just going to have to get more sophisticated in it because I learned that I'm not as detailed as I should be, and even going on record, I need to be a little bit better. So I used to just say, oh, I liked it, oh, it was good, oh, it was trash, or I didn't like the ending. You know, I got specific, you know. I used to say things like, I liked the actor, the sci-fi was good, it confused me. I would give details, and those are perfect. Those are perfect reviews. But then there's the other review that I started giving because I was posting stuff on social media, and that was, you know, I give it a 5, I give it a 3, I give it an 8, I give it a 9. And these were ratings out of 1 to 5, with, you know, or 1 out of 10, you know, 1 out of 10, you know, out of 10. So I said I give it an 8 out of 10. And over the years, I have adjusted that by going from 1 to 5, which I felt was a little confining because it didn't give too much wiggle room. You had to end up doing 4.5. You had to end up doing, you know, if you do a 2, now you're saying it's lower than 50%. So yeah, you know, and that borderlines on trash. So what number does a film become good? And then we look at tomato ratings on the tomato meter, and you know, they go out of 100. And that's cool too, but you don't know what the heck is the criteria. So of course you go into, I give it an 8. Like for instance, I saw Beast this past, I think it was Saturday. Yeah, and I saw Beast, and I came out the theater like, yo, I liked the movie. It was unsuspectedly paced well. I thought, like, after the first moment they saw it was a lion, they were in such a tight predicament that I was like, oh, well, you know, they've just written themselves into a dead end. Now the rest of the movie is going to have to take place in this dead end. And unfortunately for me, but fortunately for me, it was a pleasant surprise that they were actually able to write more story, and the story pacing kept going back to, you know, another good point. Wow, another good point. You know, whereas in some movies, or especially, I guess, horror movies, they depend on stupid characters doing stupid things, and be like, oh my God, why did she do that? Close the door? You don't understand. He's right there. Oh my God, don't get in the water. Don't go in the room. You know, all those type of things horror movies have been known to get you to do. And as much as Beast gave off Jaws vibes, there really wasn't. It was a really good contrast to Jaws, but it was also a contrast to Cujo. And because of the contrasting or duplicating of story, you sometimes take that in consideration and be like, oh, they did a better job than the story that was like it before. So, you think of all these things when you are rating a story. Did they just make it a female lead and it's really just all about her, and she's just a contrast to the male lead? Or is this a remake of the first movie? You got sequels. Or is this just the black version of something else? So I'm a writer. So I'm already going to analyze the story probably different than other people. So in my rating criteria, without thinking, I'm already factoring the story a little bit better than or more than somebody else. But then, some people may rate acting, to be a big factor. Or you may have somebody. One of the things I also rate high is entertainment value. If the audience really gets it, I'm going to give it a little nudge, because maybe it's me. Maybe I am the confused person out the group, and the movie makes sense. I just don't get it. It's still going to be a knock if I don't get it. But if everybody else gets it, I'm going to be like everybody. Fortunately, like movies like Us or The Departed, there were a lot of people that were confused. So me putting that down, I was like, all right, well, the movie magic did not work, and there's people that are confused. So that definitely is a notch off. But it took me, and takes you to wait till after the movie is out for you to see what other people think about it, for that criteria to be factored in. But I certainly listen to the audience. It was kind of hard with Prey, because I watched Prey on the streaming service, on Hulu, so I watched it out of the house. But I listened to what people said online and took that into consideration. So that like audience is big for me. Story is big, and when I say story, I'm talking about, does it make sense? How many little gimme parts do I have to make where it may have, some movies, God forbid, don't have any of those little gimme points, but some movies, you'd be like, I don't know, but that's not important, so let's keep it going. Let's keep it. We're not gonna talk about that. Let's keep it moving. The movie is important and good enough for us not to count bullets, for us to not ask how they climbed down the tree. We know they got down the tree, and we good. So some minor details that may not be fully complete, that you let them go, because the overall picture kind of makes sense. So like, I gave Sucker Punch a lot of gimmies, because you're like, what, have they ever even tied in to what the dreaming does in the story? So sometimes the movies will tell you what the answer is, what's going on, but then there's other times where you got to watch it 2 or 3 times to get it, and that to me is a problem. If it's that difficult, then it's not really working. Movies should be like any other story, work from beginning to end. So that's kind of how I do movies. How I do comic books and books, sort of the same but different tiers. Like, I read slow, or I read at a different pace than my son and my wife. However, my entertainment value should be like the same, whether you're reading a book fast. If you're reading it too fast, you can miss certain things. But I'm pretty much a detailed reader. I read just about every word on the page. I don't skim. And so when I come away with a finishing of a book, I really have accumulated a lot of detailed and information in it. I do it the same thing. Like, of course, there's no acting in there, but in a story, it may not be, the beautiful vocabulary only. I'm looking at that, but I'm also looking at what happened. In the movie, we call that like the wow factor. In a book, it's really stands out because that's all you have to go with. Sometimes certain things are hard to describe. I had a scene in Acacia that, the dude was fighting and he came down the hill into the army and he went back up, and it was very detailed, and it was a long fight scene to describe. And sometimes fight scenes you get confused with where all the characters were because the author's trying to tell things happening simultaneously. And so for me, it wasn't confusing, but it was a bold thing to do in a story. I like simple books. I don't like so much creativity in the storytelling. Like in urban fiction, you'll find that books will jump from character to character, and in some stories that are multiple characters, that allows you to see the same thing from different perspectives. And they even put, the names, some of the authors even put the names of the characters on the chapter. And that really is like, makes it cool. I remember reading, what do you call it? No, not her. Tomei, Children of Blood and Bone. And she did that, right? But when she did it, the challenge is, whereas urban fiction, they got black names, Tanya and James and names like that, so you can remember the names being different. Whereas when Tomei did it, names are very similar because many times they're West African names, and you don't actually know how to pronounce them, and even if you do, you don't have a huge catalog of people that you can reference them with in your head. So like if I have a character named Dave, I know about 20 people named Dave, and I can reference all of them, old, young, and so that helps me keep names in the back, keeps the character and allows me to progress with the story. So I enjoyed her book, but sometimes it took me a minute to get to remembering who the character was and whose perspective I was reading in the book. So that to me is an element of the creativity, and that's cool. Like if she'd have done anything more than that, it would have been a challenge, and it was because I liked the story that I was able to really remember the characters and go back and be like, oh, that's who that was that happened, and now I remember stuff like that. That's another thing in a book that I kind of don't like. Of course, I don't like the books, habit of authors not finishing stories and keeping something as a open-ended story to fuel you buying a daggone sequel. Movies don't do that too much because they got a post-credit scene and they have trailers for the next movie. I don't do that with my books. There's, I did a post-credit, it's not a prologue. I forgot an epilogue, right? I've done an epilogue in my book, and I did it because I didn't know when I was gonna be able to write the sequel. But I do know I had a sequel in mind. So when I wrote the story, I had a beautiful epilogue, which may be able to be the first chapter of the sequel. So that's how that went. But other than that, I can't really tell you. Now, comic books, what I like in my comic books, outside of the story and all that other real good stuff, I need my comic books to be complete. I do not like comic books that are a long scene one scene, two scene. No, I don't like that. I like a lot of things to happen and it to almost be a collection of one-shot stories. Now, I know, I read graphic novels, series stories, like I'm reading Blade Runner, and that may go to 10 books, or Philadelphia may go to, a year worth of books. But, I needed to wrap it up. I don't want too much throwback. I don't want too much individual elements that don't really connect to the last book. I want to feel like I'm reading something all together. And that's really it. So my next blog, I want to get into what are your movies that, just movies, we'll just go deal with movies because there's too many books out there, and comics, so it's really hard to do those. But with movies, we can go with theatrical, streaming releases. And so I'm going to go in movies that have gotten a 10 by you, like a 10. And what is a 10? All right, we'll talk about it. Peace. Like, subscribe, share, and comment. Peace.